Hi everyone, this is David Blakey, and this video is the Python Getting Started using Python on Windows, supplement to the Getting Started handout for using Python on the other platforms. The steps that we're going to cover today in this video are first to check to see if Python's already installed, and then because some PC systems already have Python on there already. If not, go ahead and install Python. And then finally, to verify the installation. And finally, to open a text file and write and run a Python program. So let's follow those steps now. First thing we need to do is determine whether Python's already installed. And the way we're going to do that is by looking for a terminal window for Windows. It's very much like the terminal window that you might find on a Unix system or on the Mac, and like the ones that we looked at in class. Terminal window is actually on Windows. It's known as a command prompt, and we can find it by going to All Programs and Accessories, and it's there under Accessories as command prompt. Now I need to emphasize, of course, that we're on XP. I don't have a Windows 7 installation. God knows I don't have a Vista installation. And so I'm not going to be able to speak to the specific location, but you should be able to find it using some form of search, or you can look online to see where is the command prompt. Certainly it will still be called the command prompt. Once we're at the command prompt, we can run the same command that we ran in class and that we find in the other videos, Python-V, which will give us one of two things. Either the message we see here, which indicates that Python's not installed, or a Python version, which would occur if Python was installed and, in addition, was on Windows path. If it does not show up, there's one other check you should do, and that's to go to the C drive, that is to the root of your file system, to check to see whether Python is there. If it is installed and it's not on the path, meaning it might not show up using Python-V, we would want to go to the C drive, the root of the whole file system, and then do a dir, which lists out all of the files in the file system. And we don't see Python there either. So now we can be reasonably sure that Python has not been installed. So the next step will be to find Python on the web, and we find it by going to the website of a company that's been dedicated to a Windows distribution of Python, Windows distribution of Perl, a Windows distribution of Tcl, and possibly PHP, and that is the ActiveState Corporation. ActiveState can be found on the web at activestate.com. They're a Canadian company, and they've dedicated themselves to creating these distributions for other scripting languages. We'll go to their website right now. And it's easy enough to find Python on the ActiveState site. You can see Python at the top. Roll over that, go to ActivePython, which is the name of the distribution, and then find Compare Editions. The edition we want is not readily apparent on this drop-down, but under Compare Editions we can find the Community Edition, which is what we want. So Python, ActivePython, Compare Editions. And then on this page you can see on the left side the Community Edition. It looks like they're pushing the Business Edition, but we want the Community Edition, which is free. And at the bottom you can see the download link. Here we find Windows installers. Now you see you have a choice between two versions. One is 2.7.2.5, which is the one we want, and the other is 3.2.2.3. As we talked about in class, version 3 is under active development, and so they're constantly releasing new versions of Python version 3. However, as I mentioned before, most companies are still running under 2.x. Python still runs the world, and so we're going to stick with that for now. You can see there's a 64-bit version for Windows and also an x86 version, which means the 32-bit version. I know that my system is 32 bits, so I'm going to select that. But if you have a later model PC, you're likely running 64-bit. I might also add that a 64-bit installation will not install on a 32-bit. So you could try 64, and if it works, then you're good to go. But I'm going to select the 32-bit version. Installation is a real snap. You're not required to put in any information, really. You can immediately save the MSI file, that's the Windows installer, and then just run it as you would any other installation program to install Python. Of course, we're going to speed up the time, 2 minutes. We're not going to take the entire 2 minutes, so we'll cut ahead to showing that the file has been downloaded. Once the file's been downloaded, we can go ahead and install it. We get the standard warning as with any downloaded program. We'll go ahead and run it. The install takes place automatically. We're only asked some formality questions such as, do we accept the terms of the license agreement, and where do we want it installed? We don't want to really change that installation location unless we have a very good reason. It's going to be installed in the C drive, the place where we looked before, at the root level. Python, ActiveState Python installs not only Python but a bunch of documentation that could be very useful. In fact, I suppose one particular advantage of using ActiveState over a built-in distribution is its provision for a package manager. That is, when you want to install libraries that are not included with Python, or if you want to have well-designed documentation that's easy to read and find. Here's the documentation here. So really, ActiveState just gives you a quality control distribution that just is somewhat easier to use. Although from our perspective and at our level, there's no need to install a Mac or Linux version of ActiveState. With Windows, of course, it's necessary. Once the installation is complete, we need to exit out of any existing command prompt windows because they may not be aware of the new path setting, which will allow us to just type Python and have Python be executed. So we'll open up a new command prompt, and then from there we'll do the same test, Python space -V, to see the Python version. Once we've done that, we can open up the interactive prompt and play with that. As you can see, there's no difference between this interactive prompt and the one we worked with on the Mac operating system on the other video or in class. So it's simple enough to work with and doesn't require any additional knowledge. There's World Hello, our Hello World app. We can quit out of this command prompt and go ahead with the final step, which will be to write and run a Python program. We're going to go to Notepad. Notepad is highlighted here only because it's included with Windows, so you don't need to install anything else. Many other people prefer a more dedicated text editor that's more flexible, like TextPad or Notepad++. But we're going to use Notepad here just because it's available. We've put in a line of Python code, and as it says above here, the shebang line is not necessary. You may remember the shebang line from Windows. From Linux or from the Mac. We don't need it here because Windows does not make use of a shebang line. So we're going to save our Python program, our Hello World. One thing about Notepad is that it tries very hard to add a TXT extension to your file name because it assumes that you're just writing text files. So you need to subvert that behavior by encasing your Python file name in double quotes, and it would look something like this. You can't see that, it's too small, but it looks like this. You would save the file with quotes, hello.py in quotes, and that includes the quotes. And as I say, the quotes force the text editor not to add an extension. So the py extension will remain. And that's what we want. So we're doing that here. Save the file. And we're saving it on the desktop because that's a place that we can return to quite easily. We'll go ahead and return to the command prompt. First, we're going to go to the desktop. From the home directory, you can say cd desktop, and coincidentally, that works on the Mac and on Linux as well. We'll do a dir, and you can see the file that we just created and saved, hello.py. This confirms that the txt extension didn't take. And then finally, we can execute the program by saying python hello.py. Now, you may remember we used the // in Unix. That // does not work on Windows. In Windows, we must say Python space and then the name of the file. And of course, what we're doing there is we're invoking Python and we're passing the name of the file we want to execute to Python. So Python will open up the file, read it, and then execute it. As I mentioned before, Notepad and even some of the other text editors are only one way to write and save your Python programs. ActiveState provides an IDE of its own that works with Python and is tightly integrated with it, and it's called Komodo. Komodo IDE is a for pay IDE. I'm not sure what it costs. It has debugging features and several other features that could make your life much easier. But they also provide a free IDE called Komodo Edit, which is, as I say, free. It allows you to write out Python files, and it knows what a Python file is, so it may it may highlight text for you, and it may also allow you to access different parts of the code, like subroutines and that sort of thing, let you bounce around your code easily and quickly.